Good afternoon and welcome to the John DeVito Show. I hope everyone had a great day today. We're into this new year, 2024. I can't believe we're already 3 days in, and things are already happening in this country and they're happening all over the world. And I guess it doesn't surprise me that, 2023 ends and 2024 is the fresh new start, but really it's just more of the same when you get into the new year. But I mean, the bottom line is, we all have to live our lives, and I think it's important for all of us to understand that everything that's going on in the world, a lot of it is out of our control. I mean, we can do certain things, we can speak up, we can try different strategies when it comes to making a difference on the world stage. When it comes to speaking up against tyranny, speaking up against treason, things like that. But when it comes down to it, really, one person doesn't have, for the most part, the power to make huge changes. But if you put a lot of people together, then I think once we are united, you have a chance of making change. So I guess the whole point is, we all get so caught up in everything that's going on in the world. We get caught up in the presidential election. We get caught up in the border. We get caught up in all these different crises. But it's one of those things where we have to learn sometimes to block these things out. Like, there are times where I get so overloaded with information, I literally have to just unplug. I don't watch TV. I don't get on the internet looking for news, and I just unplug. And sometimes you just have to get away from it and just live your life, because if you're so obsessed all the time with what's going on in the world and how it affects you, I mean, you're going to have a miserable life, and you can't live like that. So, anyway, I was thinking about that a lot today. Before I got into what I wanted to talk about, I just wanted to mention that we all have to remember 2024 is going to be a crazy year. I mean, we already know Trump versus Biden. They're trying to pull Trump off the ballots. Biden, I'm still convinced they're going to boot him and maybe give the nomination to Gavin Newsom, or who knows who it could be. So who knows what's going to happen this year? Both sides are fighting tooth and nail. And I mean, really, the gloves are off right now. And I'm afraid that as we get closer to the election, there's going to be violence surrounded, either the presidential candidates, or there are going to be things out in society where people are taking matters into their own hands. And I pray to God that doesn't happen, because we have to maintain civility in this world in order to make sure that we are moving towards being a civilized society. But who knows what's going to happen in 2024? It's going to be a roller coaster the whole year. And it certainly has started off that way. So I'm going to go into a few things in this podcast. I'm going to talk a little bit about Claudine Gay and her resignation from Harvard, resignation being the operative word. And then I'm going to talk about Trump being removed from the ballot in Maine by Secretary of State Bellows. I mean, what right does she have in order to do that? And then we're going to talk a little bit about the delay in the release of names for the people that frequented Epstein's island, Bill Clinton being one of them, reported to have been on the island over 50 times, which is just pathetically disgusting, and it needs to be punished. But let's go back. Let's start with Harvard. Now, I know that a lot of you have been following this story, and I'm going to give my honest opinion as to how I feel about Claudine Gay and what happened at Harvard. Okay, so obviously there were some anti-Semitic attacks on the Harvard campus, and obviously it should have been condemned immediately, and it was not. From my perspective, you cannot have any type of violence confrontations on your campus. Again, whether it's Palestinian students, attacking Jewish students attacking Palestinian students, we cannot set the precedent where this is going to be acceptable in the society. Let's look back at the summer riots of 2020, the George Floyd riots, and look what happened that year. And then look what happened on, quote unquote, Insurrection Day, where it wasn't really an insurrection. But I mean, we can't get to a point in society where we're allowing violence. And that is unfortunately what was happening on the Harvard campus. Now, Claudine Gay is, of course, a DEI hire. But when you say that and you look at her track record, she had a pretty impressive track record. Of course, that entire track record has now been called into question with her multiple plagiarism charges. So what a mess the Harvard situation is. So she went to Congress, Claudine Gay, and she refused to condemn the anti-Semitic attacks on the Harvard campus, and she wouldn't say it was against Harvard policy. I mean, come on. I know that she was probably trying to be politically correct, but she made a huge gaffe, obviously. Now, I say it's a gaffe. Maybe it's not a gaffe, and I guess that's where it gets scary. I assume it was a mistake because in my heart and in my mind, I can't imagine anybody that would be willing to accept any type of violence against Jewish people or accept even any type of violence against Palestinian people on your campus. I mean, for me, all forms of violence have to be condemned. So she wasn't willing to do that. She came back to Harvard. She was under fire by, as she says it, the racist white people on the right, which really rubs me the wrong way because you have these people on the left, these diversity hires that go out and do these crazy things like Bellows did in Maine. And then when they do them, they play the victim card. Now, here, Claudine Gay should have condemned anti Semitism on the Harvard campus. If she had, this thing would have never gotten to the point where it is today. But we're going to talk about that also. So she was investigated for plagiarism. They have found literally dozens upon dozens of different types of plagiarism in her works into getting her doctorate degree. So it completely destroys her credibility. And that's unfortunate because I'm sure a lot of that investigation had happened once she refused to condemn anti Semitism. But again, Harvard hired a person that was plagiarizing to get a degree. And Harvard, of course, is one of the oldest universities in the world. I think in the US it was 1636, if I remember correctly. Obviously, a very well known and well regarded university. It's taken a big hit. So, a couple of days ago, we've got donors pulling their money from Harvard. I mean, they've already got a $55 billion endowment. So if a few donors, pull their money, they're not going to lose any sleep over it. But Claudine Gay finally, after additional plagiarism charges came out against her, she resigned as the president of Harvard. Now, Claudine Gay was making $900,000 a year as the president of Harvard. So it's been all over the media that Claudine Gay resigned. Harvard and Claudine Gay have parted ways, on and on and on. I've read story after story after story. Now, we've done some investigation. Claudine Gay may have resigned as president of Harvard. However, she is still employed at Harvard. Claudine Gay is now a political science professor at Harvard, and she will be getting paid $900,000 a year, the same salary she did as president, as a political science professor at Harvard. Think about that for a second. So you hear stories about Pocahontas Liz Warren, who is making $400,000 a year at Harvard to teach one class. Now you've got Claudine Gay at Harvard, who is going to be a teacher, one that plagiarized her way to her degree, but she's going to be a professor at Harvard, making $900,000 a year. So there you've got two professors at Harvard making $1.3 million a year, and you've got someone like Pocahontas Warren, who has the gall to ask for loan repayment because these poor students can't afford to pay their loans. Well, Liz, let me tell you, if you didn't make $400,000 a year to teach one class, and Claudine Gay wasn't going to get paid $900,000 to teach as a professor, maybe the cost of Harvard would not be $85,000 a year. Of course, don't forget they've got that $55 billion endowment that they could use and probably pay for everyone's education. But Harvard is nothing more than a money-making machine. But Pocahontas Warren gets out there and feels bad for the students that go to Harvard to earn their teaching degree. And they get in $300,000 in debt so they can get out and make $40,000 a year. But then people like me who have been responsible are expected to pay their loans. But the whole point of this is this. Claudine Gay is still an employee of Harvard. She only resigned as president. She is still a teacher. She's still a professor. She's in the political science department. If you don't believe me, look it up. And she is going to make $900,000 a year. This is a woman that would not condemn anti-Semitism. And this is a woman that cheated her way to her doctorate degree. $900,000 a year. Not bad. I should have cheated when I was in school. So I guess that's the message we send to everybody, right? But now, if it was a white person, would she be getting the same deal? I bet she wouldn't. So that's what we deal with this DEI crap in society today. All right, moving ahead. I've got two more things I want to talk about. I'm already at 10 minutes, which I can't believe. Let's talk about Donald Trump. Oh, this thing drives me crazy. So we've got Trump, the communist traitor who is committing treason up in Maine, Secretary Bellows, and as I've said many times, the people of Maine rock. They are the greatest people in on the face of the earth. I grew up in New Hampshire. I get a lot of friends who are maniacs. Maine is a great state, wonderful people, and they are literally getting screwed by the Secretary of State who was placed into her position by the legislature. She was not voted into office. So Bellows decided that she had a duty to the voters of Maine to pull Trump off the office and basically screw over the multitude of people that wanted to vote for Trump. Luckily she's looking out for them. But she said that it was her constitutional duty to pull Trump off of the ballot because he participated in an insurrection on January 6th. Now, there's one little problem with this as far as I see it. I don't know how you all feel out there, but January 6th, Trump, he was acquitted of any charges. He was acquitted of any charges. So just because Secretary Bellows is buddy-buddy with Biden and buddy-buddy with Obama, she's got pictures all over her Twitter page of them together, hugging and everything else. But she says this wasn't partisan. She said this is to protect the people of Maine. Are you kidding me? Now, what type of regime or what type of political party takes their opponents, the leading opponent, off of the ballot? I'll tell you who. Communists. Communists do that. And that's what this is. Ladies and gentlemen, I love you all. You're my patriots. You're my friends. You're the people that listen to my podcast. I love all of you. Thank you for tuning in. But let me tell you, if you think we are still living in a free country, I don't believe we are. Maybe we never have. Maybe I was drinking the Kool-Aid and I believed that we were free, but we are not free. And we are becoming less free every day. Our government is now telling us, you can't vote for this person because we don't approve. Does that sound like freedom? Does that sound like a free country? So Donald Trump has appealed the decision, and this will most likely go to the Maine Superior Court and then on to the United States Superior Court, where it will be overturned. There's no doubt about it because it's not constitutional. This woman in Maine needs to resign. She needs to be thrown out of office. Now, of course, in the typical Democratic way, she pulls this act, which is an act of treason. She's a traitor. She is destroying everything that this country is based upon with her acts of removing the leading presidential candidate from the ballot. But then she comes out afterwards as the victim, that people are threatening her, that they're yelling at her, they're posting mean things about her. Now, let me be clear about this. While I despise this woman, and I think what she did is terrible, no violence should ever be included. So if you're out there and you're listening to my voice, do not commit acts of violence against people like this. That is not what the Republicans do. That's what the Democrats do. When they have riots like the George Floyd riots, Black Lives Matter shipped pallets of bricks all across the country so people could smash windows and steal things. The right doesn't do that. The left goes low, we stay high. But we have to be persistent. But this woman coming out and playing the victim. Now, apparently, she's saying her house was swatted. Of course, she gets all the articles written about that. But when it happens to all the Republican congressional candidates and congressional people, they don't talk about that. They get swatted over and over and over again. And there's no big deal about that. But again, if it did happen, those things shouldn't happen. But what did this person expect? What did Secretary Bellows expect when she tried to pull the leading candidate from the Republican Party off of the ballot? That is un-American. That is treasonous behavior. And she is nothing more than a fascist communist who needs to be removed from office. Again, just disgusting. So, Maine, I love you. Massachusetts, I see all the stats. I get my most listens for you, my home state. I love all of you. Connecticut is number two as far as the state where I get the most listens, and then New Jersey and New York are right up there also. And but it's funny. I can see that even in like Wyoming, one person listened to me this month. So if you're listening to another show out there in Wyoming, whoever you are, thank you. But I love all you guys. But we need to pull together. We need to unify and make this thing happen. Now, let's go to the last story. I'm already at 15 minutes because I don't stop talking. But how about Epstein's Island? I mean, how long have we been talking about this? If you've been a fan of my show for a while, I've done several episodes on Epstein's Island. I went through the flight logs. I read off the names. And I need to be clear about something. Someone sent me a message today. And if you're listening to this podcast, I heard you. So someone sent me a message saying, what if Donald Trump is shown to be a person that visited Epstein's Island? Let me get to that. I have looked at the flight logs, okay? I have analyzed the flight logs. They have starting locations. They have ending locations. My understanding is this of the relationship between Trump and Epstein. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll admit that I'm wrong. But this is what I understand at this point, and I've researched it extensively. From what I understand, Trump was friends with Epstein, and it was more of Epstein courting Trump, because I think that's what Epstein did. He was courting these rich and famous celebrities, and he was like a salesman pulling people in. So Epstein got his picture taken with Trump several times as they were somewhat friends in New York City. Then there was one episode where Epstein went to Trump's golf course, I believe, or his club, and he was hitting on the young girl daughter of one of the men that Trump was friends with. Trump was told about this. Trump evicted Epstein from the premises, and Trump and Epstein ceased any communication at that part. Now, leading up to that part, apparently there were a few occasions, I believe, where Trump was flown on Epstein's plane, but he never went to Epstein's Island. The flight logs show that. So hopefully, if it comes out, it's clear and we understand the truth of who actually went to the island. So Trump, I believe, even came out and said that he had been on the airplane, but nothing had ever happened. He never went anywhere. It was more of like a business trip that Epstein flew him someplace and whatever. So that being said, when you look at the flight logs now, the flight logs are detailed. They have people's names, there are code names, and it shows where they're going. Now, one of the names we know about is Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was John Doe 36. And there was record of Bill Clinton going to the island over 50 times. I'm sorry, but if Bill Clinton went to that island over 50 times, he was there for one reason and one reason alone, and we all know what that is, right? So for anybody else that is shown that they have gone to Epstein's Island once, 5 times, 10 times, 100 times, at that point, I want an investigation into every person with the evidence that they have. And if people were found to be traveling to that island for the sole expressed intent of raping children, they need to be thrown in prison for life. Honestly, I would love to see them executed, but I don't believe that'll happen. And again, I don't care who these people are. I don't care if it's the King of England. I don't care if it is the President of the United States. I don't care if it's the biggest stars in Hollywood, Nashville, wherever. I've seen a lot of the names, and I've done shows where I've read them off. And unfortunately, some of the biggest heroes in American history are all on these lists. Now, they haven't released it. It was supposed to come out yesterday, January 2nd. Here we are, January 3rd. Now they're on hold. Someone delayed the release because the overlords are fighting against this because many of their names are on these lists. But as a country, we all need to wake the hell up. We cannot live in a country where we condone men, women, whoever, flying to an island to rape underage children. And who knows what else they did to them? Did they torture them? Did they murder them? What did they do in that temple on that island? These are questions we all deserve to know. And if we want to get to a point in this country and in the world where we are defeating evil, we need to stop this. This is evil. And I don't care who it is. Now, to answer that question that came into my email earlier today, What if Trump were to be shown to have been on Epstein's island and he raped children? I will tell you that even though I am the biggest Trump fan in the world, I don't believe that happened. But if there was evidence that that happened and it's proven that he was there, he should be in prison like anybody else. But that also, if I say that about Trump, you have to be willing to agree to that when it comes to the Bidens, when it comes to Bill Clinton, when it comes to the many other names that I've seen that are on that list. And if you haven't seen the names, some of these names are going to shock you. There are some beloved people on these lists that were reported going to Epstein's Island to rape children. So, unfortunately, those are the things going on right now in the world. We're in 2024. We get a lot of other things happening, but I wanted to address these three particular topics in this show. And I will most likely be back tomorrow with another show. And again, I like to end my podcast by thanking all of you. Again, I'm not a professional. I'm a guy in Massachusetts with headphones on right now in my bedroom, pacing around with my phone in my left hand, doing a podcast. So I even have the professional equipment downstairs, and I did a lot of my podcasts with that. And I know the audio on these is not as good as if I was using the microphone. But honestly, I'm in a good groove doing it this way. So I'm going to stick with it for a while. I might get my Rodecaster Pro fired up again with my microphone at some point and then record the shows that way. And I think the audio will be better. But that's what I do. And I appreciate each and every one of you that tunes in to listen to me. I mean, I'm getting a lot of downloads for my small little podcast. So I greatly appreciate all of you that tune in, that listen to me, that take the time to listen to my show. I hope that you enjoy listening to me. I hope that I'm making some good points and I'm making good use of your time. And when you listen to my opinions, just know that I don't seek out advertisers. I've had a few people seek me out. I don't really take on advertisers because I want this to be truthful. I want this to be without anyone influencing me, and I want to speak the truth as I see it. So hopefully you all appreciate that. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for tuning in, and I will be back soon. Take care now.